Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie. On this minisode today, we are going to be talking about a book that's a little different than what we've been talking about in the past. It is called The Awoken. It is by Katelyn Monroe House. She is an Emmy-nominated documentarian, award-winning author, and this is her debut novel. This novel is also becoming a TV show. It's already been signed up to do that. And I think that's great because I could definitely see this story transferring as a TV. It's going to do well. It has everything you could possibly need from a TV show. Before I continue, I just want to mention that you can check out our show notes on darksideofthelibrary.com. We have a lot of books over there if you're looking for some dark reads, and you can find all of the books listed and places you can find them. Join us on our Amazon Live channel at amazon.com/live/darksideofthelibrary. So you're probably wanting to know what The Awoken is. When Carrie and I were going through our curated book list in July, this book really stood out to us, and it was because it has such an interesting summary. So here's what it is. This is a cinematic speculative debut about a woman who goes through cryogenic preservation at the time of her death and wakes up a century later in a world where her very life is a crime. When Alabine Rivers, a politically active young woman with a bright career and romance ahead of her, finds out the devastating news that she has terminal cancer, the only thing that gives her solace is the possibility of a second life through the emerging field of cryogenics. A century later, scientists have indeed discovered how to bring back the dead from preservation, but humanity has been locked in a philosophical battle over the ethics of this new godlike power, a battle that has turned violent. Those who are resurrected, the Awoken, have been declared illegal and to be shot on sight. This is the world that Alabine is brought into by the Resurrectionists, an underground militia fighting for the rights of the Awoken, finding herself in a completely unfamiliar world and one where she is an outsider for the first time in her life. Alabine must figure out how to survive and determine her place in this world, all the while being haunted by lucid memories of her previous life and the man she loved. The Awoken is a gripping, action-packed story full of plots, twists, and high emotion. It's a look at prejudice, complexity, the fears that tear us apart, and the hope that can bring us together. First of all, I don't really have a trigger warning to present to you. This is darker. There are violent parts of the book. There's a lot more gore. I would say not super gory, but there are people being shot or killed in this book. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about the pacing. This book is definitely action-packed, no lies. In fact, it is so fast that I think it could have benefited by being a little longer. This is because there are quite a few characters, not too many characters by any means, but there are a lot of interesting relationships happening and a lot of political intrigue, and the world is very fascinating. It's different, and I just wish we had just a little more time on each of these aspects of the story, but it is fairly fast-paced. I would say, though, it does have a bit of a lull in the middle, and that's only because we're getting a lot of this. It's not quite info dumping. It's more how the group of resurrectionists and the U of A are at odds with each other, and the tactics, different things that are happening with each group. So it feels very military, I guess. Alongside with Alabine's, floating in and out of kind of like a different state of consciousness where she's very much present in her past life with her loved one, Max. So the next thing I want to talk about is Alabine, her relationship with Max. So that's a huge portion of this book. It actually is quite wholesome, the story itself, their relationship together, and this is Alabine's past fiance, lover, etc. who she didn't quite get a fulfilled life with because she was diagnosed with cancer around the time that they started having a deeper relationship. So at times this book felt very romantic because it is so deep in their relationship, and she's stuck in the past many times throughout the story. And this can be a little jarring for some people. If you're looking for something really gritty and dark and sinister, this might not be for you because those portions of the story are really wholesome and touching. They kind of drive the emotional bits of the story. In fact, that's kind of why Alabine keeps pushing herself through a lot of these things. So we're introduced to Max and Alabine's relationship in the very beginning, how she dies, then she is awoken. She has this secret word called Rosebud that places her mentally, like consciously, into the past. But it's weird. It's like a lucid dream. She knows that it's not real sometimes, or she chooses to go into these situations where she's in past Alabine time with Max. So Alabine, in the very beginning of the book, we get a little brief overview of who she is, but then she's awoken, and right from the get-go, she's already having to dodge bullets, run with some stranger who's dragging her along, trying to, quote, save her, and all she has is questions. She has no idea what the fuck is happening. And she doesn't necessarily have to keep following the resurrectionists. In fact, when I was reading at the very beginning, I was like, I don't understand why the resurrectionists want her specifically. What makes her so special? Because the whole point is that she's supposed to be woken up when she has treatment for her cancer. So she doesn't have that. It's not accessible to her. So she's just woken up. And they keep insisting that she's very important. But you don't get that in the very beginning. So I kept asking myself, why did they wake her up? But the way they tied in her importance and why they woke her up in the story itself and her romance, it all makes sense and it is seamlessly connected. And I think it cultivated a very beautiful story. There's a lot of other characters. Some of them may come off as a little stereotypical. We have that hardened, badass lady who's definitely a military woman who seems incredibly skeptical of Alabine almost the entire time, and pretty much contrarian. We have the dad figure that Alabine gets connected to. So we do have a lot of characters that are repeated in a lot of storytelling, but these characters are still very unique and very special, and I like the relationship that Alabine has with these characters. Another thing to keep in mind, this book is in first person. So this is all from the perspective of her, but you can tell this is actually her presenting the past to somebody else. We don't know what's actually happening. So we have her talking about her past and her past. So it's very, very cool how Katelyn has done that. But I think that kind of took away from getting more insights into a lot of the other cool characters that are surrounding Alabine. The story may not be as dark as I had anticipated when I picked it up because it is very romantic. It's more action-packed, but this is definitely more like a dystopian novel. It feels like Walking Dead or Handmaid's Tale, or even, I guess you could maybe even say Hunger Games, like just because we have different segments of people who are fighting for a cause, that kind of thing. But it's definitely its own unique story, and it's still grounded in some kind of reality, even though it's sci-fi, and that's what makes it really good. We have this underlying question, this philosophical conundrum, which is humanity has been seeking out the fountain of youth forever. We've always wanted to stay young or even live forever. Even things like implanting our memories into robots, does that make us us? You know, there's a lot of questions there. Here's a different story where we could die, but we had the chance of being brought back to life when there's a solution to some of the medical conditions that we've been undergoing, especially with Alabine, who is incredibly young in her, I think she's mid-20s. So she has a whole life ahead of her, but she will never ever be able to live that unless if she goes through cryogenics. But now we get into the question of God, and is this power okay for humanity to hold? Being able to lengthen human life. I mean, just think about it. God fate. These are all things that we are basically manipulating. This is God's work, really. If we have decided that I don't want to die at this age, but you are meant to, technically, then we're taking these things, these really powerful things at work, into our hands. That's what's really cool about this story. So there's an underlying tone here and a lot of ethical questions that are being tossed around. And we have Alabine in the center of it all. And Alabine is an interesting character because there's a lot of little barriers for her, such as she doesn't have her cure when she wakes up. So she has all of these obstacles that she personally, emotionally, and spiritually have to jump through, and physically, and push herself through in order to protect her people, who are now the Awoken people. So it's just a really interesting storyline. And it's kind of relatable as technology continues to advance. There's a lot of questions that like this that will pop up and have popped up. The Awoken is interesting too because it's almost like this whole bit with cryogenics, instead of increasing our desire to be more technologically advanced and to understand the world better, it decides to knee-jerk and do the opposite, become borderline technophobic. Society has decided to instead progress, it's actually regressed. And that includes things like gender and race. And the author does such a great job creating a realistic dystopian future. I mean, like, this is stuff that we might be seeing, or things that might actually happen. Not necessarily with cryogenics, but in other facets. And maybe it'll be something else. Not only does she do this, she ties in this very heartwarming story about a character that you find relatable and you just want to see her succeed. That's really all you want to do. We also have other characters that you start to connect with, and you get really attached to the cause for them. That's what's really cool about this story. It does have some twists and stuff at the end, and they might be predictable a little bit. And Alabine isn't perfect by any means. She's not the stoic hero's journey, which I don't mind. She does have flaws, but they weren't jarring flaws where it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this character's still alive kind of flaws. Anyway, it's a very good novel. I give this one about a 4-star out of 5. So this is The Awoken. This is by Katelyn Monroe House, and stay tuned for a potential show coming in the future. I'm not sure when, but it's in the works, so that's really cool. If you guys enjoy dark reads, go check us out on our Instagram, our YouTube channel, our Facebook, and our Amazon Live channel. We do more than just books on amazon.com/live/darksideofthelibrary. Lately, we've been presenting a lot of Halloween stuff, trivia games, lots of stuff over there. Come join us and chat with us when we do go live. Before you leave today, make sure to leave a comment and tell your friends about this show. We want to spread the word and create a community of dark readers. Be prepared for also a Patreon. We are going to be working on that by the end of the year. It's a little crazy this season, so hopefully that'll be in the works soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I will talk to you next time.